Dark Elves and Dwarfs. Two foes that are quite likely to meet on the battlefield, and that's what happens here today. A little quick battle here, 1v1. I am playing the Dark Elves against the Dwarfs. A very fun matchup here. I'm going to go through my army list as always, and then we're going to see what our opponent is fielding here today. Now we have 4 units of Bleak Swords in the front line. Bleak Swords are a really great unit just to kind of hold the line against Dwarfs. You don't really need a huge beat squad to deal with Dwarf Warriors. You really want to kind of tie them up so you can use other components of the Dark Elf roster to really help deal with them. On top of it, it's a really great way to get access to silver shields at a pretty low cost. Now, in addition to that, we've got 2 units of Hargoneth Executioners. One, of course, being the Blades of the Blood Queen. He's giving us access to our great Guardian passive, an 18% physical resistance buff. In our very back line here, we also have 2 units of Dark Shields, and then even further back, we have 2 units of Reaper Bolt Throwers. Also, we have a Sorceress of Death with Boom, Purple Sun of Xerius, and Soul Blight. Now, I went with Purple Sun of Xerius because I really like it. It's fun, it's chintzy, but whatever. Also, we have LOKHIR here on his Great Dragon, Maelstrom, which is not in the lore, but still it's fun nonetheless. Bitter Duelist, an amazing capability here to really just kind of help lock up and tie down any kind of lord you're fighting. Also gives you a lot of really great defense when you are getting surrounded by melee anti-large units, because that is a 27 increase to melee defense. In addition to that, we also have Noxious Breath. Sorry, not Noxious Breath. Who cares about that? All dragons have that. We have Helm of the Kraken, which does make him quite competitive because he can replenish his hit points and also gives him some additional melee defense. Now, deep in the trees over here on the far left of the map, we have Knights of the Ebon Claw. Now, these guys are so sick because I love Dread Knights. The great thing about them, of course, is that they don't rampage. They also are AP, so they can do quite a bit of damage, especially if you keep them in combat, because they are a perpetual combat cavalry variant or the Dark Elves. So let's go take a look at our foe's army here. You can see we're already kind of raining death upon them. Now, I'll be totally honest with you. I'm going to be quite critical of myself during this fight. I did make a lot of crucial mistakes that really kind of helped almost lose the game or win the game for me. Who knows? We're going to find out together. Now, we can see the front line is consistent of Dwarf Warriors and also Dwarf Longbeards. Great units against the typical chaff, or well, quote-unquote chaff when you're dealing with Dark Elves by comparison to the armor rating. You look at Longbeards here. Great shields, great armor. They've got a really good melee attack and melee defense here. 32 weapon strength. And on top of that, they have charge defense against large, which is a really nice little addition here, especially because it prevents them from getting just cycle charged by, say, a Bretonnian Cav or even my Dread Knights. Well, it doesn't prevent them, it just mitigates that damage. Now, they've got 2 units of Quarrelers mirrored on both sides, a unit of Thunderers here, and then a lot of Slayers in this back line, right? Dragonback Slayers included are the Regiment of Renown unit of the Slayers, and then also with Rangers with great weapons. I can really see the mentality here of my opponent. He went with a lot of Quarrelers, so he can shoot over and do damage to the majority of my line without having to worry about compromising with Thunderers. At the same time, he went with Thunderers and Rangers to help out with any kind of Malekith play or LOKHIR play. In addition to that, you can use both of these to target any kind of, say, Cold One Knight Cab that charges your flanks, or Thunderers are great against Hargoneth Executioners. Hargoneth Executioners still do have 100 armor, so that's nothing to sneeze at. Now, you can see the early engagement's already kind of kicking off here. We're really focusing down these Thunderers. Now, I will tell you guys right off the bat, just to get a quick pause in here, I took these Reaper Bolt Throwers because I was looking to use them in their anti-large variant to snipe out any kind of artillery pieces. What I should have done was put these in anti-infantry mode and target the Slayers. The Slayers are a bit spread out, so they can really mitigate the spread of damage enough, or a lot here, but they do have 0 armor, so they would have taken a lot more missile defense, or missile damage. They do, of course, have a bronze shield, which mitigates 30% of small arms missile fire hitting it from the front. Those aren't small arms fire, so you're okay with that. As you can see, both armies are charging up the line here. We've got the missile fire ripping across into our Longbeards. Tons of Quarreler damage into the Hargoneth Executioners. A great chuck from the Bleak those mining charges into the Bleak Swords. We're about to see the same thing mirrored on the other end of the battlefield here. And a charge to match it. Oh yeah, look at that juiciness. And really, those blasting charges do a lot to low tier infantry. You can see the health just chunking down. And I mean, sure, it's hitting their own Longbeards with great weapons, but really, like, look at that. They almost have a quarter of their health gone before the charge was even met. Whew. Grombrindal getting in there, trying to do some serious damage. He's just all hog wild. Man, look at this unit of Bleak Swords, which is charging into the face of those blasting charges, just ripping through them. You can see here we have Soul Blight kicking off across the entire battlefield, or at least the frontline engagement for me. A great thing about Soul Blight is it reduces the weapon damage of all of these, weapon shrink of everything involved here, as well as the armor. Armor is the big saving grace in addition to leadership of all dwarfs. Now they have 70 armor, which they had 100 previously. And you can see that my Hargoneth Executioners are just kind of ripping through them as they get into the line. But we can also see that there's a problem. The Hargoneth Executioners are running into the Bleak Swords are running into issue with the miners, all of the Arbalists, not Arbalists, I'm sorry, the Quarrelers in the back line. And that was the big point, though, of those Bleak Swords. We're using them to absorb the charges, to absorb any kind of missile fire, so we can get up close and personal with the units that matter, our Hargoneth Executioners. Now, we can see we have Lokhir coming in to kind of push into the side flank. Both of our Bleak Swords on the left and right have completely buckled from those miners with no thanks to those miners with blasting charges. And the Quarrelers are doing a better job of outranging our Dark Shards, even with shields. With a 2-to-1 ratio, they're just getting far more damage output into us. Also, we do have our great little bros on the side here, Knights of the Even Hand, going after some of these miners. Purple Sun Azirius ripping through the nice backline, doing damage into these miners. Not the best target. I did want it to kind of push into these rangers. It's just starting to clip into them. I mean, I take those kind of things, even though I know they're kind of risky. I just really enjoy their mechanics. I always used to take Purple Sun Azirius in the tabletop, so it was always enjoyable for me. Let's get this good cav charge into here. Watching these Knights at the Even Hand just kind of rip through these miners with blasting charges is so enjoyable. Murderous Prowess is kicking off across the battlefield for all of our Dark Elves. We can see here as that's a little kind of purple haze and glow about them. Look at those cold ones just jumping into them, like just Velociraptors, like caw, caw from Jurassic Park. All right, let's take a look at the main line here. So Grombrindal is kind of squaring up with Lokhir Fellheart. All these Slayers are now pushing forward into our backline, or joining in with this frontline fight. Their Longbeards with great weapons have charged into our Reaper Bolt Thrower. Now the big thing here, I've dropped them off of this cannon, or I'm sorry, the Bolt Thrower, and I've pushed them back. There's no reason for them to get involved in that fight. They can't do any damage. Might as well save the crew so we can have them fight another day. We have won the left flank charge, or the fight against the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. We can now push forward into some of those range units here. We got really juicy backline charges going on, and it's really awesome because we also are coupling this with a Soul Blight. Now, a lot of these units, I will give myself a critique right here. Nothing is really going to take a huge particular advantage of Soul Blight. I could have held on to that and cast it on a bit more advantageous target, maybe even the Lord right here, Grombrindal, or of course the Longbeards with great weapons. That would have been a far better target. I mean, if we're taking a look at Quarrelers, okay, now they've got 50 armor instead of 80, which is nice and all, but at the same time, I already have heavy AP anti-infantry units back here. That it's just a little too overkill. It was a wasted cast on my part. Now, we're trying to get these Bleak Swords into this fight here to slow down their rampage through our backline. We do have some Dark Shards that have rallied in the very back here, but one unfortunate thing on my part, and I didn't focus on it when it initially happened, was that these Slayers got a really brutal rear charge on my Knights of the Even Claw here. You can see that they're at under 50% health here. This is not a good target for them. Slayers are anti-large. The Giant Slayer is an anti-large AP version. The Slayer version is still just plenty destructive against armored cav, even without that AP. Coming in here, just pouncing onto Grombrindal. He is surrounded by a lot of Slayers here, and this is kind of scary. We popped out a Duelist, giving us that bonus to melee defense here, trying to just do a little bit of Alpha Strike action into Grombrindal. The nice advantage of using Lokhir is that his attack animation does push things all around. Flash Bomb, though, is negating the bonus from our dreaded Duelist and reducing the speed. So if I want to get out of this fight quickly, it is going to be way harder for me with Flash Bomb activated on Lokhir Fellheart. So this is a very dangerous situation right now. He is surrounded by Slayers. He can't just simply path through them, as you're seeing, as he just kind of stomps his way. But Slayers nonetheless can do quite a bit of damage on a good surround in addition to Grombrindal. Grombrindal himself has only 500 AP weapon strength, and when I say only, I mean that's a fuck ton. He doesn't have anti-large bonus, but he can still do quite a bit per wallop onto Lokhir Felheart. We got our little guys kind of pushing around here. We're trying to get onto these things again. We got a nice Soul Blight kicking down. This is what should have happened earlier. We shouldn't have wasted on these units back here. But, I mean, we ended up winning this fight. May or may not be because of Soul Blight. I'm just going to assume it was to help my wounded pride. But this unit of Slayers is now kicking into the Blades of the Blood Queen here, which are arguably the more important unit of Hargoneth Executioners because of that physical resistance passive. I wish I was more mindful of that in the time being, or else I would have dedicated more resources towards it. Go ahead and just get this going again. Now, as you can see, it's just a paltry amount of Slayers. 25 Slayers, even with a reduction to their weapon strength, in conjunction with Grombrindal, are really beating on Lokhir Felheart here. We have a unit of Slayers chasing our Sorceress as well, and they will do quite a bit of damage to her. So we're just trying to edge out that really crucial Alpha Strike into Grombrindal here. If we can do that, we can really kick up in the balance of power. We're already ahead, but this will just kind of like put the nail in the coffin, as it were. But at the same time, if we lose Lokhir Felheart, this is not going to be any good for us. Oh god, squeeze away, look how mad they are. They're so orange, And really what we did there, we just used our Reaper Bolt Thrower to get in the way, screen out that charge, do anything we could to absorb it a bit, so Lokhir could get up in the air a little bit easier. You can see he's now firmly away, and he'll be mounting up. Now, a strike number 554, ItalianSpartacus. I wish I had gotten my Sorceress of Death onto Grombrindal earlier here. He had 544 health left. She wasn't going to be able to just waffle stomp him on her own, but this is just a free pick I could have done. It wouldn't have, like I said, it wouldn't have been an easy kill, but it would have just been damage onto him. It would have forced my opponent to spend time microing that situation. Now, our Cold One Knights did get in the backline after they kind of squeezed away from their Slayers. They did break for a little bit, but they have come back, and they're just really harassing anything that's fleeing away, making sure they don't come back, getting into these Rangers here, just ripping right through them. This is what they're really meant to do if they're not in perpetual combat. Clean up that back line, make it nice and tidy for you so you're spending less time in the back line and more time in your front line. We finally do get our Sorceress in there, and like I said, it's not an easy fight for her. She's going to get hurt real bad. 265. I even could have dropped Lokhir here, but I was really scared of these Slayers. Lokhir's so low in health. He is at his health cap, because he is not regenerating anymore. He has already regenerated through the majority of the fight. And things are looking pretty good. The balance of power has actually dropped from when we last looked at it. And our Sorceress is now fleeing because of the Slayers just helping to waffle stomp on her. But we do have some Dark Shards, getting some additional shots in on those Slayers. Again, I wish I had focused more on these Slayers. These Slayers were a linchpin of my opponent. They did so much to Lokhir. They were able to shut down the Knights of the Even Claw. They were able to really get in the backline, and because they're so quick, they can just move from unit to unit quite quick once they've broken them or gotten them to a sufficient level. Look at these guys. Look at these mad berserkers. Ugh. Rub my dwarf belly. We're pushing out over here with Lokhir Felheart. We've just sent 2 units reeling over there. And we're trying to, like, just scrounge something here. The balance of power keeps teetering at this point. It's like that 60, 70, well, more like 70%, where it was from 80 now down to 70. And we're trying to just push ahead here. Got some units of Bleak Swords coming up from the rear that were chasing a unit off. We've got our Knights of the Even Claw, which are just starting to come back, and our Hargoneth Executioners, which are chasing away everything over there. We're going to bring them back into our fight and make a secondary line here so we can face this final charge of the Slayers. What a glorious notion here, right? Slayers just into the bitter end, as their lord doth depict. Glorious charge here from Slayers and Bleak Swords, ripping off a Soul Blight, kicking into them as well. We just so managed to get some final winds of magic here. Just leaping jump kick into these guys. Chuck Norris all over the place. But I mean, Slayers don't go down without a fight, and these are just tier 1 infantry against them. So without any kind of really anti-infantry characteristics, they're still in for a huge fight. Soulblight's not going to do a whole ton against this. Weapon damage is going to be pretty huge though, so that's a nice advantage here. What, Grombendal is shattered, he is running off, army losses have kicked in for them, and for the most part, the game is won. But I wouldn't really just say, oh, so easily dismiss the fact that those Slayers are still Slayers, and they are just mulching through this unit of Bleak Swords. We got just some sort of charge in here with the Knights of the Even Claw. They're not necessarily guaranteed to win. Or, I'm sorry, you are not guaranteed to win just because you have army losses. These Slayers are clearly still working over my Bleak Swords, crushing out these Knights of the Even Claw, and there's barely any of them left. What, 9, 8, or 8, 4, this is the one, and 21. I mean, that's still pretty scary, but this fat unit of Hargoneth Executioners here is going to help us win the day. And we'll pull ahead. I'll fast forward this a little bit here. Even though, man, those Slayers still just fought to the bitter end. I mean, look at that. The Hargoneth Executioners aren't doing that great. And bringing in Lokhir here at the end. So it was definitely a Pyrrhic victory. I made a lot of mistakes, and I really, really, really paid for it. I mean, the Knights of the Even Claw were able to do a lot of sufficient backline damage for me, but they couldn't get there until almost the end of the fight. Had my opponent brought a Runesmith or even 2, I would have been shit out of luck almost the entire fight. The huge increase to armor would have negated Soulblight. The damage resistant buff would have just completely negated a lot of my bigger charges or any kind of damage they were receiving from our Reaver Bolt Throwers. So I really got lucky here in pulling off another win at the cost of certain mechanics that I just really didn't nail properly. Had I used the Souls Blights a little bit more clever, had I been better with my Dark Shard and my Reaper Bolt Thrower targeting, I would have been able to negate the thing that did the most damage to my army, which were Slayers. 84, 55, and 98. That's a huge amount of kills for Slayer units, which started in the back line and against Dark Elves. They don't have a lot of really squishy targets for them to just go all hog wild on, and they were able to do a significant amount of damage to me. But guys, as always, thanks for watching here today. Hopefully you're enjoying my climb back up the ladder as I get better at doing quick battles once more. But again, we will be having our stream of the Warpstone Cup League every Wednesday, so make sure you check that out here. As always, guys, have a good one and take care.